What's up, everybody? Mini Ruckus here, and today we are going to paint some Tyranids. As you guys know, I love painting my Tyranids, my High Fleet Sanguis Atramors, the Bloody Black Death. I will add some photos and a slideshow at the end. But we primarily airbrushed contrast paints from Citadel. But what have we gotten recently? The whole line of AK interactive contrast paints. Not sponsored, bought them myself because I love AK products and I would like to try them out. Hadn't seen anybody play around with an airbrush, so we're going to try to do a color match side by side and recreate our High Fleet Sanguis Atramors using an airbrush, some dry brush techniques, and a little bit of technical paints to recreate this. We're going to have a good time. I've got big models, I've got small models. My entire Tyranid army is painted in this scheme, and today we are going to do that scheme on a Tyranid Prime. We're going to have some fun. Right now he's primed black, so we're going to kind of just roll through and do a whole painting process straightforward, beginning to end. I'll add some talking points, but join me, have fun, and don't be afraid to play around with some contrast paints with the airbrush. Let's get started. All right, like I said, this is going to be a pretty free-form process. We're just going to paint beginning to end, and hopefully you join me. I guess I should turn on the airbrush. If you guys hear the airbrush, well, deal with it. I'm in a small place, we just moved. I'm working with what I got. So I had already previously primed this guy. Just want to come through, put an extra layer on him, make sure I'm not missing any little bits. Get in all the crevices. Yes. Yes. I love painting Tyranids because there's so many different color schemes. There's so many ways to paint them to look alien and buggy and unique. I'd love to see some of your guys' High Fleet schemes. If you join the Mini Ruckus Discord, I'd love to compare my Tyranid Prime with your Tyranid Prime. Alright, I'm going to let that dry for just a second. This whole time, by the way, I'm just doing quick clean outs. I got a water cup here. Spraying into my little spray out container, spraying in the water cup, rinsing out easily, thoroughly, and just moving on to the next color. Super simple, super straightforward. All right, on to the next color. Morghast Brown. I should have a vortex mixer, but I don't know where I put it. It's in a box somewhere. So we don't need too much of this. We're going to thin it down with a little bit of thinner. I like using these little mixing trays. Makes everything a little bit snappier. Couple things to note while airbrushing your skin tones up. Starting with our Morghast, ending with our Wraithbone, we're building those transitions slowly and trying to maintain those shadows in the deepest recesses. We're going to keep our brush mostly at a 45-degree angle, but we still want decent coverage. So we'll sometimes break that rule just to create nice highlights with our airbrush. We're not going full bore. We're not just spraying and praying. We are going to use trigger discipline and brush control to maintain good coverage at that 45-degree angle. Build those highlights while still maintaining a good shadow in some of the recesses, like a zenithal highlight. That way, when we do put our contrast paints down, they'll flow nicely, build up a better transition on the skin as they are layered up. Next color, Wraithbone. Everything that we just sprayed. Really gotta shake that up. Oh my gosh. Everything we just sprayed, we're gonna do a tighter pass through. I think I need more Wraithbone. I'm gonna do a little bit of a tighter pass through. Add a little bit more highlight. Try to get a good mix on this. This is one of my first YouTube videos ever. Pretty damn new. Pretty damn nervous. But we're having fun, right? We're just over here painting. As long as we're having a good time, we're just vibing. All right. Now for the fun part. So previously, we had used washes and contrast paints from Citadel, starting with Magos Purple, running up to Carroburg Crimson, and then Leviadon Blue. We had used these colors to filter our skin, like so, to kind of build that contrast and filter a really cool saturation of colors over that pseudo zenithal or prime layers that we've done, whatever you want to call it, just painting. So we're going to color match. We're using these AK new shades, and I think we're going to try out this Purple Flesh, and then we're going to start filtering in Super Magenta, and then Demon Purple. So let's shake them up and let's give them a go. We also have their little medium, so I think we're going to mix that in just to see how it works through the airbrush. Thinning down. We're still going to add a little bit of thinner, but let's see how we go. So, Purple Flesh. I'm going to add 2 drops of their medium. A little bit of thinner. Nope. I want a little bit more thinner, I think. Because this starting color, this is really just going to be our filter. This is going to kind of path us where we want to spray all of our other colors around. Every drop. Get out! All right. So I like to filter this. Don't have to be too careful. Anywhere there's a joint, we're just going to spray that. Probably going to overspray on the wings a little bit, because why not? Let's get the feet. Let's get that all up into the tail area, maybe even at the base of the tail, since he's got some chitinous armor on the tail. Not worried about overspray. At the end of the day, it's just a nice, quick, easy Tyranid. Get some of this on the brain. Get a little bit in the areas in the alien bug crotchal region. Really am liking this color. So generally during this process, I kind of go through, make a double pass around all these areas. I'm not worried about overspray. Just trying to get a good base laid down for a good path for our next colors. And every color jump we make, we're just going to be painting a little bit less. There's a hair stuck under here. Got it. Maybe a little bit more on the brains. It's a little heavy on his face. Cool. What's fun about playing with an airbrush and contrast paints is you really just have the freedom to kind of spray and pray. It's always wonderful, though. Cool. Next color. Space Magenta. Oh yeah, that's a very nice vivid color. Love it. Add a couple drops of their medium. I don't know how many drops of thinner that was. Consistency is the one thing with an airbrush you kind of just have to play around with. Kind of just learn your own mixing paradigm. All right. So now we're going to spray a little bit tighter. I'm just trying to focus more on just the areas we just sprayed with our purple flesh. We're going to filter this on top of that. Really get a nice color. Starting to look kind of cool. I think that's good for that color, though. I don't want to overdo it. And they already kind of overdid it. Because airbrushing is fun. Now we are going to use our Demon Purple, but I think I'm going to add a little bit of that Space Magenta in it because this is a pretty saturated color. No, I don't think it's as dark as Levedon Blue. I think we'll be fine. Thin it down just a little bit more. I think I'm going to need a little bit of a darker color. It's not as black as I want it to be. It's definitely building contrast, but it's not the contrast I want. It looks good, but it can look great. So I think I'm going to keep this same color, but I think I'm going to go dig. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they have a blue black. And I think I'm going to do color mix. I got the color. All right, so I think I'm going to use night black. I'm going to add a couple drops of that into my demon purple. I think that's going to bring me to the darkness that I want. So I'm just going to do a 50-50 mix. Add a little bit of medium, a little bit of thinner. Oh yeah. There's the flavor. A little bit more thinner. Yep. I think that's exactly what I want. Very, very saturated purple. Starting to look pretty terrifying. As you can tell, I'm just kind of multiply. That makes no sense. I'm doing multiple passes. That's how you talk. Multiple passes, just trying to get this to the darkness that I want. But keep my brush moving. We're always looking for places we missed, places we want a second pass on. Next step, all we're going to do is we're going to paint all of the chitinous armor and the claws, hooves, whatever else you'd like, black. We're going to paint the tongue, probably just wash it in probably space magenta, maybe even the purple flesh, our base color. Keep it simple. And then throw some yellow contrast paints on the eyes. So before our streak and grime wash, we are going to take the time and block out all of our black chitinous armor. This is going to be the longest step in this process because we want to maintain good brush control. We don't want to get any of that black paint around all of our nice skin tones, everything that is going to be washed with the streak and grime. So steady hand, good brush control. Let's get all our chitinous armor and claws, everything we're going to dry brush down the road, blocked in. going to use that space magenta. We're also going to hit up all of the vents in the arms. So that's going to be our next step before we do our streaking grime wash. All right. So we got our contrast paint sprayed on the skin. Got a carapace, claws, chitinous armor. It's all painted black. Painted the tongue, painted the eyes, painted the vents. Now the next step is going to be a wash of streaking grime. So we need some streaking grime and some white spirits. I'm using the AK stuff. And I put a little bit in this little tray here, and I mixed it in to kind of thin it out with some mineral spirits. We're going to do an all-over wash, mainly on just the skin bits, but we want to just filter this all over the model. This is going to tint the model, grime it up a little bit, change the color of our skin, and kind of blend in all of these colors we've got going on. So I'm trying to keep it from pooling too much in the recesses, but we want roughly that. If you haven't used streak and grime before, It is pretty fun. Adds a nice kind of yellowish, sickly tinge to all of our skin tone. I dig it. So we're going to do this. Once the whole model is done up like that, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Q-tips, because it's all I got right now, and we are going to use mineral spirits, and we're going to kind of softly dab and clean up some of this so it stays in the recesses and it isn't pooling up too much all over the model. So let's get started. All right, now that we have the streak and grime on, we let it dry for a little bit. We're going to take a Q-tip with some white spirits, and we are just going to start dabbing that off, trying to bring back some of that vibrancy of the white skin tone that we had underneath. I don't want it so tingy and yellow. So this part's usually pretty fun, pretty quick and easy. You definitely want to be a little bit gentle because you don't want to brush off any of your paint layers. One thing that I did off camera is I went through and I did throw a satin varnish on, let that dry just to make sure the model was safe. I wasn't going to be rubbing any of the layers that I had previously painted on off. It helps, but I haven't done it on all my nids, so it's not completely necessary. If you got time, do it. If not, screw it. The model's still probably going to look badass regardless. And then one thing I will do, don't have to wipe off too much. One thing I will do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to take that contrast paint, that space magenta. Our next step is going to be refilling in the voids, fixing up any black that maybe got too much splash of contrast paint on it, or streak and grime on it. And then we're going to dry brush the claws, dry brush the carapace armor, and we're done. Other than that, the base is up to you, and you can have a fun time. So let's get to that step. What I was trying to state, although I did it improperly, was post streak and grime, we want to go and use our space magenta contrast paint, and all of the joint areas and the vents on the wings, the legs, and so on, as well as the tongue. We might go through and put a layer of this on the tongue to build up that vibrancy. But we're just going and filling up those little spaces with this contrast paint to build a harder transition between all of the joints and the rest of the skin and or claws. I think one thing I'm going to add, because I want my all my joints and everything to be a little bit darker, I think I'm going to add some Nuln oil, but I kind of want to keep that yellow tinge. So I think I'm going to mix some Nuln oil with some Mortarian grime. And I think that's going to work out really well. Just going to mix that up on the palette, maybe splash in a little bit of water. Oh yeah, that's going to be real cool. That's the flavor I was missing. Dry brush time. So we use the AK black to base it. I'm going to use AK smoke black and a little bit of basalt gray on the chitin armor. And then for the claws, I'm going to start with brick red, dry brush scarlet red, and then probably just do an edge highlight of cadmium red. Quick, easy, to the point. Some brick red, some cadmium red. Well, that's scarlet red, and this is cadmium red. And nothing special here. I'm just using a paper towel because simplicity is best. Start off very, very light. And I'm taking this through the claws too. Just so we can see that subtle highlight that we're going to be making. It's almost unnoticeable. Unless you're in front of the model in person. I'm excited to see this side by side when I hold this up against another little model in my NIDS. Because the whole point of this video was to kind of show you airbrushing contrast paints, show you how I'm painting my NIDS, and also play with new contrast paints from AK. And so far, I think I like them. I feel like once I see them side by side, I think that the AK ones are probably going to have a little bit more vibrancy to them. I don't know if everyone will feel or feels that way, but I just feel like the colors are popping in front of me a little bit better than the other ones. I think on this guy, I definitely went a little heavy-handed on the streak and grind, but hey, it's streak and grind. It's just fun to fool around with. And they're bugs. They want it to be perfect. They just want to consume. They don't care what they look like while consuming. Very subtle dry brush. Couple notes for dry brushing. During the process of painting this model, we are making sure we have a nice damp dry brush. I was using the Artist Opus series dry brushes, just for fun. It's what was in front of me at the time. But let's make sure we're using a clean rag, using a damp dry brush, getting most of the paint out of the brush before we really start applying that dry brush. And although it may sound indifferent, be very soft-handed when you do this. Go against some of the chitinous armor so you can get really good color off that dry brush onto the sharp edges of the model. But also be soft-handed and get some of that on the larger folds of the chitinous armor. It'll build up a nice transition, and as we layer and raise the highlight of our dry brush, it'll slowly make that model pop a little bit more. Mix a little bit of basalt gray in with that smoke black. Now we're really starting to see that pop. Being a little bit light-handed here. I don't want to fully dry brush over our previous layer. Just want enough to accent some of these raised edges. Like so. Looking pretty cool. Alright, I'm going to go pure basalt gray for our final chitinous dry brush. And we're just doing a couple passes and everywhere it just went, just to bring out the most extreme edges. Just want our armor to have that subtle pop. This guy kind of reminds me of like a miniature Norn emissary, does he not? He's got the claws, he's got the big horn on the head. Same chitinous head type armor pattern. Yes, very same, but different. Very, very, very cool. All right, last but not least is dry brushing our reds. So we got our brick red, our scarlet red by AK, and our cadmium red also by AK. Using a lot of AK stuff today. Like I said, I love AK products. So we're going to start with our brick red. And really, we're not trying to overdo it. We just want to get the edges and kind of blend that in nicely to the black. Kind of like so. Just enough to make it a little bit more interesting. Have that nice subtle pop on the table. And then you can layer this, you can dry brush this. I like to dry brush it and then maybe add just one extreme edge highlight, especially on the focal points like the horn. The horn is definitely a point of interest on this model. Probably my favorite aspect is this guy's head. Get that nice solid dry brushed edge. Super cool. Super, super cool. I love Tyranids. They're so freaking fun to paint. You can paint them in so many different wild ways. They are just an absolute blast. Kind of debating on whether I should do the little claws too. You know what? We will. We'll do the little claws. Probably not going to fully layer them all the way up to the orange, but I think just adding a little bit of an accent. Like so. Just add a little bit more interest. Sure, I probably did all the little bits on the other guys that I painted. Now on little areas like this that sometimes are a little bit difficult to dry brush, sometimes I'll just kind of hit them with an edge highlight with the dry brush and then come through on their little flat areas, bring a little bit of a just solid color edge highlight. Brings just enough interest.
once I get the claws painted, that's like the moment in painting these nids like this where I'm just like, ooh, that's nice. Ooh, it's looking good. Be a little bit careful here. Bits like this is why sometimes I'll just kind of come in and hit that with an edge highlight of that color and then just let it fly. Alright, we just want these to look cool on the table, don't need to be perfect. Not gonna try to attempt to dry brush that. Too dangerous. We make good calls when we're painting. Or try to, at least. You know, we're all still licking our brush and shit. Kind of like just painting freeform like this. Hope you guys enjoy the video. I get a little too much in my head about making content, so this is one of my first videos. I think sometimes it's nice to just kind of freeform, right? Feel like you're painting with somebody. Alright, all are done. So we're going to take our next color, which is that scarlet red, and for the rest of the dry brushing, we're just going to take the other reds into the horn and the claws. I think that's all we need. We don't need to bring much more focal point to all the little bits. We just want enough color on them so they're just kind of contrasting there and nice. So I'm really just going to kind of focus on the tips, just to kind of bring that deadly orange color right into the edge of these talons. These nice scything talons. don't think I've ever used a Tyranid Prime in game, but now that he's painted, I think now he deserves to go die while trying to consume some biomass. I think he's almost worthy of death. Horn. And we're going to go into the pure cadmium red. Scarlet red. Sorry, cadmium is our last color. Hit just the tips of these claws. Almost the tip of the horn. Now we take that cadmium red. We're just going to give that an edge highlight right there. Looking super deadly. That edge highlight just closes that off. Makes it look so cool. Last but not least, I'm going to take some ice yellow. Do I want ice yellow? No. I'm actually going to just hit it with a volcanic yellow. So we threw the light yellow on the eyes, but it's a little dulled down now, so we're going to take some of this volcanic yellow. We're going to give the eyes a nice little dot, just to kind of brighten those up a little bit. Super cool. That's it, guys. Tyranid done. I will do the base. If you guys want to see how I do the bases, I'll show you how to do the bases in another video, but I'm kind of interested to see what the side-by-side looks like. Pretty sure. See, I went a little heavy-handed on the streak and grind, but as far as skin goes, like, we are pretty samey same. This one was painted with the
Citadel contrast paints, and I did a color match with the new AK line. I feel like my purples, though, I feel like they pop a little bit more in the AK, but that could just be me. They would have popped more if I didn't go so heavy-handed with the streak grind, but that's fine. It's a bug. They all look different. Whatever. You could easily take your skin tones, Morghast Bone, um, or Wraith Bone, and do like a nice controlled dry brush to kind of get some of that white back. I believe I did that on the Norn Emissary here. But even as a side-by-side, like, they look pretty cool. They're in the same army. Another one for High Fleet Sanguis Atramors, the Bloody Black Death. So I'm going to do his base up. His base is just going to be skulls, a bunch of blood, kind of like this, because they've been devouring for quite some time now. I'll do that. We'll take some pictures. I'll do some side-by-side photos. And thank you guys for watching. All of my NIDs were inspired by an artist called the Feral Painter. I took his concept and made it my own. So we're going to plug his video here at the end. Link in the description below. But by all means, please go check his stuff out. He's a huge inspiration to me. He's who locked in this scheme for NIDs. I added my own little twists and turns, and we're still having fun. AK paint. During this whole concept, we really wanted to compare the Citadel contrast paints with our new AK contrast paints. And when everything is said and done and dried, I almost see no difference. I probably got a little bit better dry brushing on this NID, but that's just a model to model basis. But everything ended up quite similar. It actually matches extremely well. Trying to just do a one-for-one match worked out for the best. They look very similar. Super great, super awesome, super similar. Yeah, I really like it. This was a fun process, good test. If you guys would like to see me paint some of these models without an airbrush using the same contrast paints, it is one thing I haven't attempted, so leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I'll add a slideshow, a little bit of pictures, so we can kind of see our final product. I did end up doing its base. He's all bloody. He's got a gas can, dead Space Marine severed head. He's consumed. He's rocking and rolling. The model I was using to compare was just the nice Neurolictor. Very cool model. Obviously, it's got the brains and everything. If you'd like me to do a video on how I did the brains, it was a very quick and easy process. Let me know. But yeah, very fun. Turns out really, really cool and extremely samey same. Looks good.